Hello everyone, Archana is here. Welcome to the 17th session of presentation ICSE Class 9 Paper 1 English Language. In today's session, let us deal with the topic letter writing, formal and informal letter. Letters are mainly of two types. They are personal or informal letter and formal letter. Now, let us deal with personal or informal letter. So as the name suggests, personal letters are those which are written to people we are well aware of. So they could be parents, friends, relatives, acquaintances, etc. etc. So the style of writing is informal. Hence, they are also called informal letters. So the subject of these letters could be extending an invitation, giving or exchanging news, expressing regret, congratulating, etc. So informal letter writing is an essential skill which every educated person must acquire for practical reasons. So despite the prevalence of mails and text messages, we have to write business letters, applications for some reason at any point of time in our lives. So here, examination point of view, 10 marks are reserved for the letter writing in ICSE examination, and these marks are divided as follows. Layout of the letter, 2.5 marks. Subject matter, 2.5 marks. Expression, 5 marks. So layout of the letter is nothing but the format of the letter. Now let us deal with the format of personal or informal letter. Sender's address. So the address you have to write towards your left hand side. So you need your street address on the first line and the city and pin code on the second line. So do not write anything about the address. And here you can see with punctuation the address is written, and without punctuation. Concentrate on the punctuations. Next comes date. So the date should be written under the last line of the address. So leave a little space between the date and the address. Follow the format. You have to follow the format of day, month, year. Example, 30th July 2021. So there should be a comma after the month. A full stop will come after the year if your address is punctuated. So if your address is punctuated, you have to maintain the punctuation below all the formats. And the date should be written in full form. No shortcuts should be followed while writing the date. Example, 10/12 or October 12. These are all incorrect formats. So please do not follow. If you do so, you will not be awarded any marks. Salutation. So letter greetings help in establishing the type of letter that a person is attempting to write. So also they represent the respect that you intend to give to the reader. Hence, it is important to know what kind of salutation would be appropriate. So the salutation is written after the address and the date. So it is written on the left hand side of the page. So the salutation has a line to itself. The form of greeting will depend on whom you are writing to and your relationship with the person. So usually start out with my dear or dear for grandparents, parents, uncles, aunts, brothers and sisters. For friends, the greeting may be dear or hi. So here one thing you have to make a note. There you can see a comma after the end of the salutation. So here you can see after the salutation you have to mention comma. That is very, very important. I'll place the format of letter writing in the Google Classroom so that you can just observe the punctuation and even the format how it is to be followed. Next, opening sentence. An opening sentence may be general in nature or a response to a letter received. So avoid opening sentences such as how are you, hope you are well, etc. etc. Some examples of an opening sentences here you can see. Thank you for your letter regarding your so and so. I was pleased to receive your invitation for. I am writing to express appreciation for the way you looked after me during my visit to. My congratulations for your success in so and so. Body of the letter. So the body is where you write the content or the subject matter of the letter. It may have 2 or 3 paragraphs. It may have 2 or 3 paragraphs. The paragraphs should be single spaced with a space between each paragraph. Okay, so leave 2 lines space between the end of the body and the closing. Closing. So it allows the reader to know that you are finished with your letter. So it conveys your love or best wishes to whomsoever you have addressed to. Subscription. So it usually ends with sincerely yours, etc., etc. Thank you, and so on. So note that there is a comma after the end of the closing, and only the first word in the closing is capitalized. So the subscription is written at the bottom of the letter. So on the left side or on the right side, depending on the format you have chosen. Okay, so better you choose towards your left hand side. Do not follow the right hand side format. Choose a left hand side format. It is the best way to deal with formal or even informal letter writing. So you can see here name of the sender, that is yours loving or sincerely. So the name comes below the subscription. As it is an informal letter, only the first name is written. So here you can see I mentioned Arjun, and you can use here I would like to mention few useful tips for writing a good letter. So cover all the issues. So when you have finished writing your opening lines, begin a new paragraph and cover all the information that you want to mention in the letter. It's must, students. A letter that is written accurately and with a good range of language will still not be effective unless you make sure that you have written all the things you have been asked to write. It's very important. So in the examination, you may be told what to include in your reply. Often there will also be additional notes which serve as prompts for your reply. So it is important that you include these in order to get a good grade. So you will be having hints in the question itself. Most of the time the question carries hints. So following those hints, you have to include the details in your letter. And it is important that you use grammatical expressions and vocabulary appropriate to the level of the exam. So even if there are no mistakes in your writing, you will not be able to get a good grade if you use only the language and vocabulary that you learned at elementary level. So even in informal writing, there is a good range of language you can use. So here I'd like to mention a few useful phrases. Use intensifying adjectives and adverbs to show enthusiasm. For example, I have got a fantastic new job. Use idiomatic language. For example, it's been ages since we last managed to meet up. Let me know what you think, etc. Use question forms to make the letter read more like a conversation. For example, how does that sound to you? How are your studies going on? Use informal vocabulary. Use get instead of receive, I guess instead of I think, etc. Use phrasal verbs and phrases. For example, write back soon, get in touch, we get on well, etc. Use contractions. I can't help thinking I should have told you sooner, etc. Useful language. So use the present perfect progressive to give news. For example, I have been helping my parents out at their shop. Use a future progressive for future plans. For example, I'm going to be staying at my grandmother's house all summer. Use conditional sentences to make suggestions. For example, if you let me have your number, I will give you a call over the weekend. Use polite question forms for requests. For example, do you think you could send me a copy of the photos? Would you mind if we didn't go camping? Use question tags to check information. For example, nobody else knows, do they? You don't mind, do you? Etc. Next comes formal letter. Formal letter, obviously, the word itself says formal. Business letter. Formal letter is also called a business letter. Formal letter is undoubtedly one of the most challenging letters to be written. So, when putting it together, often you are addressing a person or organization with whom you are not familiar, and the quality of your content, including spelling and grammar, will be strongly scrutinized. So in general, what you put together will have one of the following purposes. Just check it. Making a complaint, make an inquiry, applying for vacancy, asking apology, giving invitations. So it is important that the overall structure is as clear and concise as possible, and that you avoid the use of informal language where in formal letter. And here you can see the marks distributed to formal letter. Layout of the letter carries 3 marks. There in informal letter, layout of the letter carries 2.5 marks. Here, layout of the letter carries 3 marks. Subject matter, 2 marks. There in informal letter, subject matter, 2.5 marks. Expression, 5 marks. Now, let us deal with the format of the formal letter. Senders or your address. So the address is written on the top of your left hand side and along with the city and pin code. Here again you can see without punctuation and with punctuation. Next comes date. So the date should be written under the sender's address. So leave a gap and then write the date in the format, that is date, month and year. You can see the example 10th August 20, etc. And again the same thing I would like to repeat here. The date should always be written in full form and no shortcuts are to be followed. Receiver's or recipient's address. So this address is of the person the letter is being addressed to. So the receiver, okay, the address is written on the left side of the page after the date. So it can be addressed to a particular person or organization. Again, here you can see without punctuation and with punctuation. Subject. So it is written below the receiver's address and its purpose is to state the main objective to the receiver in a short sentence. Salutation. Since it is usually a business letter, so that falls under formal letters, you would not know the receiver personally, right? So hence the titles for salutation are put in the following manner, followed by their surname along with a dear. Here you can see Mr. for male receiver who is married or unmarried, Mrs. female receiver who is married, Miss, that is MS, for female receiver who is unmarried, doctor, that is male or female receiver who is a doctor by profession, or you can also write dear sir or madam. Opening sentence, so it should be strong but not rude or straightforward, as that would only create a negative impact to the receiver. It must clearly state your purpose, whether it is to lodge a complaint, make an inquiry, or to request something. Body of the letter, so it is where you write the content or subject of the letter. It should not be more than 2 paragraphs depending on the type of business letter you intend to write. So you must avoid using casual terms and abbreviations. It's very important. So as to keep the style of the letter intact, it should be clear and precise, ensuring that all the major points are covered and is also not lengthy at the same time. So closing. It should be a conclusion of your main body and in not more than 2 to 3 lines that must convey the action or response you expect the receiver to take or provide. Subscription or complimentary clause. So it is written on the left hand side of the letter below the closing, leaving some gap. It usually ends with yours faithfully, sincerely, respectfully, etc. Only the first letter will be in capital letter. You can see here yours faithfully, Y is mentioned in caps. Signature or name of the sender. So this comes only after the subscription and includes both the signature and name of the sender, unlike informal or personal letter. You should put your signatures first and then write your full name with your designation, if any, within brackets under the signature. Example, yours faithfully. Anyways, you have mentioned that. Under that, you have to put the signature and write your full name, and then you have to mention your designation. And few points which you have to keep it in mind. Though you are placing your point, always make sure that the tone of your letter should not read as aggressive or rude or impolite. So you should be very careful while using the tone in the letter. So point out relevant details and if possible even minute details so that your concern is highlighted through your letter. And always specify the solution or action to be taken you are looking forward to. So never leave it as open-ended letter. So clearly state what you want as resolution. And make sure you proofread your letter. You have proofread your letter before closing it. It means that you have to proofread it. It means that you have to read the letter carefully before closing the letter. And don't become repetitive while writing the issue, problem being faced, etc. Okay, and usage of simple language is best here as it will eliminate any chances of miscommunication to the reader. And avoid using big words or jargon to create impact or impress your reader. Don't use flowery language here. The letter should easily get conveyed by the reader. So students, here we have winded up letter writing, that is formal and informal letter. Thank you all.